Hello, I'm Jeremy, and welcome to my channel. I wanted to talk today on, I don't know, my third or fourth segment today about Ted Cruz with his talk with Miss Gupta and the ridiculousness of all of this and how undereducated we are and how we're just fed lies and nonsense with all of it. Before we get into it, I do have other platforms where you can watch me on. I have two channels on YouTube, Freedom of Expression and Practical Focused Improvement. I'm on BitChute, and then I have those same two channels also on Rumble. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, because I'm nailing this. I've got it. It's just so frustrating. I watch this stuff, and it's just this whole thing should not have happened. It's all based off of a lie. So I have two links in the description below. One of the links is with his conversation with her, and then the other one is a link with Jordan Peterson with one of his biblical series talking about how this implicit bias is nothing but trash. Every last bit of it. So he's talking to her, and he's saying things like, you are accusing everyone in the US and you're really feeding this off to young people, and it's all coming from the left about we all have these issues. And you know what? She can't explain it. She can't define it. She gives no solutions to it. She has absolutely nothing. You know why? Because the whole stupid thing's a lie. At least from my understanding right now. Do not take this as I'm right or wrong. That is not what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is show that there's a problem and that we can actually fix this. We can address these issues so we can at least clear things up. Because whenever I get into Jordan Peterson here in a little bit, he goes off on this stuff. And he, in a nutshell, it's that it's too complicated. There's too much, and you can't say that it's really this or it's not this, or maybe it's this over here, or maybe option number 4. And he gives like a couple of other suggestions as to what it is that it might be. So, but she gets drilled, and he's asking her, what are your positions on free speech? Because if you're not allowed to talk, then in a way that kind of makes you a slave, and that because the masters don't want to hear it, and right now it's kind of like, well, is that what the Democrats are trying to do to the rest of us, and that they're trying to do this through big tech media and through Mark Zuckerberg and just CNN? It's all of it. It's like, I don't know, maybe. Do you know? I yeah. I really love it whenever he asks her, have you defended someone who had the opposite view of you so that they could have the right to free speech as everyone else? Because that's what I want. I want to know both sides of the argument. I want to play devil's advocate because I want to know the truth. I don't give a damn about either one of these people. I don't give a damn about Ted Cruz or whatever her name was. I don't care. Are they good, competent people? Are they getting down to it? And the answer is no. Because I don't understand why Senator Ted Cruz didn't bring up how this unconscious bias is nonsense. Why did he not do it? It's his job. He's a politician. He goes around and he makes speeches all the time. And he should be informed on all of this stuff. You know what the problem is? The problem is that what a politician really does is that they go around and they do campaign financing and fundraising. That's what they spend the majority of their time. I've heard this more than one time, and they're just constantly on the phones, calling people up, trying to get in donations, and of course, it's with the rich people. I just saw that today, actually, with Milton Friedman. He was talking about this. I was going over, what was that? The problems with immigration, and I saw something else where they were talking about, he was talking about this. He was talking about the problems that the poor people have and who are impoverished or whatever are the same reasons why they can't deal with politics and they can't handle anything. It's the same thing. Poor education, or maybe they have some kind of learning disability. The reasons that why they're there are also the reasons why they can't get engaged in other things, such as with politics and policies. And he said that it's all being done by the middle class. And it's like, well, why not the rich? And it's because They're too busy engaged with doing that. And so it's the middle class that they're the ones who are doing everything. They're the ones that they're the politicians, that they're doctors, the lawyers, kind of all this stuff. They're doing a lot of the work. And they're also going to the rich people saying, hey, give me money, give me money. And it's a big problem. You can get a lot of money off of this. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So, but he asks, and she just tiptoes around this about, have you ever defended somebody who had an opposing view? Because she's third in line for the Department of Justice of being able to run it, and she can't give an answer for that? Are you kidding me? You're supposed to be representing everybody, not half of the population or part of it, but everyone. And it should be easy to do because the centralizing theme in this case is freedom of speech for everyone. I don't understand how there are so many people who are scared of words. I don't give a damn what you tell me. I'm not scared of anything. And I will do my best to hold you accountable for what you say. It's like all this stuff too with slavery and bigotry. And it's like, here's a little fun fact. So black people were not the first people to be enslaved. They were one of the last. You want to know how I know this? Because of my ancestry. I'm Welsh. And Welsh is, they have their own language. It's not English. They got conquered by the British. The United Kingdoms is, no, they were united under tyranny from Britain. They did that to Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. And the Welsh language, it's weird. It's, I can't even do it. There's a what is that first Fantastic Four movie that came on out, and it had Captain America, Chris Evans. He was playing the Human Torch. The guy who plays the leader, the stretchy guy or whatever, he's Welsh and he can speak it. And I saw a video of him speaking it and several others, and it's unique. I wouldn't say it's very attractive listening to it. But the Welsh were slaves. And the British dealt with the Welsh by placing castles all over the place to keep them from uprising and rebelling. That's why there are more castles per square mile in Wales than in any other place in the world. And the things that happened to the slaves that were brought over from Africa, it's not something that the colonies thought up themselves. This was something that they just copied from the British. And so whenever my ancestors were being forced into a life of servitude, they said the same things. We're not going to learn your language. We don't care. You're going to learn English. And so they changed everyone's name. And so they said, well, your name is Jones, your name is Smith, your name is Williamson. And that's why there's so many of these really common names. It's because if you look back, they just changed. And it's the same thing with all these black people too. It's like you can forget your ancestral language. You're going to learn English and we're going to change your names. And so whenever Jones, chances are, no matter if they're white or black, it's a slave name. That they were held captive by the British and they were forced to do all this. And that's, if you watch like Braveheart, they really did do prima nocta, which is where the British lord on the wedding night of two people stayed the night with the woman, and you didn't know if she was pregnant, who the father was, because they didn't have genetic testing. And it's like, just breed them out, I guess, as that king says in that movie. So ridiculous. And I don't care what you have to say. I don't care what you say about the Welsh. I don't give a flip, because that is not me. I'm me, and I will live my life, and you will not affect me because of some stupid words. I also love it that he just kind of drills her, and he's like, I'm not asking generally, I'm asking you specifically. But I would say that he's just as he's just as guilty with all of this stuff as she is, because he still does. I wish they would continue to press the matter until they got an answer one way or another. Or you know what would be even better is if he would just fill in for her. It's like with Senator Cotton, he was asking. She made the comment somewhere along the lines of all this about how every institution in America has racial bias, and Senator Cotton asked, well, how much racial bias then does the Biden administration have? Oh, she didn't answer. Why not? You know what? He should have answered for her. You know what? Let's go with half because we know it's such a problem. Oh, that would have been great. Answer for her. She doesn't want to answer, then do it for her. That would be fantastic. And she worked with the ACLU. From my understanding, they're corrupt as can be. Tim Pool talks about them a lot, and so does this other guy. You know, I don't know what his real name is. He just goes off of his username. So I'm not going to say because it's like, he's a bit of a coot. But he gets some stuff right, though. I mean, he really nailed it with this whole COVID thing. But anyways, the ACLU, they've just kind of gone nuts with all this stuff. I think they have like almost every single letter in the alphabet is associated with some kind of hate speech. And they have like all these lists of numbers and stuff. And it's like, yes, because it's only limited by your imagination. And there's plenty of imaginative people out there. Whenever I worked out there at the prison, they had their own sign language so that they could talk to each other. Because the way that it worked was that you had a pod and you would go down to the pod. In the center of the pod, there was a tower. And you would have one officer up there, and then you had these big glass windows to each section. There would be 3 sections, and then the hallway would be behind you. I mean, because you had big windows, everyone could see, and they do their little sign language stuff. And it was made up sign language, some of it. And so they would talk to each other all the time. And they had, you know, it's just like their normal speech. You know what, they had slang that they would speak, and they also had their slang that they would sign as well, you know, and they would do it right in front of your face because, you know, most didn't know it. There were some who did, and they were like, oh yeah, say that again, I'll write you up. So like, yeah, it's a ridiculous concept. It's this generalization again and not really dealing with the issue at hand. And why? Well, it's because, as we'll get to here in a little bit, it's complicated. I really don't like how Ted Cruz keeps changing his question too. It's like, you knew ahead of time what was coming. And he's asking, is big tech, are they doing enough free speech, or do they have too much censorship or not? And it's like, stick with it. He shouldn't be there, and neither should she. I don't know why we don't have a direct engagement. I'm just going to say this over and over and over and over again. I'm going to deal with this. There's not enough checks and balances with the people and with the government. They get to do all of this crazy stuff. There's no accountability with what they say or with what they do. I saw with this 1.9 trillion stimulus bill that got passed, billions of dollars are going to Bill Gates and his research. I think it was with AIDS, because it was also associated. They were talking about California and how they were no longer considering it a felony if you had AIDS and you had sex and you passed it on to someone, that it was now a misdemeanor or something like that. And I was trying to think about, well, why would that be? And maybe part of that is because it's not as deadly as it used to be, perhaps. That I know back in the 80s that if you had that stuff, I mean, people just were dying from this and people were extremely scared. But today it's like Magic Johnson got it way back there in the day and he's still alive. South Park made an episode about it, and they said the cure is cash, liquid cash, and they had old Magic Johnson there, you know, the cartoon version of him. And that's what he was doing. And he was blending up cash, or had liquid cash or something like that. And he was giving himself injections. It was hilarious. And so I was thinking maybe that's it. Maybe because it's not, I guess, as deadly as it was. And so it's kind of in the same other categories as other sexually transmitted diseases now, since you're not, I guess, guaranteed to die as much as you were before, perhaps. I tell you what, this is something that I'm not going to do. I'm not going to go to Congress. I'm not going to go to the government for any permission to do anything. If it really gets back, I will take this crap overseas. I will do whatever. I will. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to have blockchain technology. And so part of it is that it's going to be just like cryptocurrency, where with cryptocurrency, with like Bitcoin, it's everyone has a ledger. And so part of your computer is being used in order to keep things secure. It's the same thing that we're going to do here, because it makes it so that you cannot be able to infiltrate the system, because every computer is always having to update its information. And if there's anything that's not up to date or in sync with the rest of it, if one of them gets introduced to the system and it's wrong, then it gets forced into accepting what the real one is. And so it's kind of a majority kind of thing. And so it's like an incredibly effective checks and balances. And I'm going to take that concept further. I don't want to give too much of it away, but there's more that you can do. We don't need the government's permission to do any of this stuff. Not any of it. I don't care what they have to say. I'm not going to listen to them at all, because I know this is going to piss people off. It's going to piss people off in power. It's like, why are we giving all of this money to all of these other huge companies and other countries? And it's like, I don't know if I'm going to do a video about it or not, but I was thinking of maybe doing one about that $1.9 trillion. I'm getting to the point where one of the problems that I'm having is that there's so much information out there that I've gone over. I'm having a hard time going back and finding it all and putting it together, because I don't want to just be here talking about stuff. I also want to have links in the description below so that you can go and look at it yourself, because I want you to understand what a problem that this is. And more importantly, that this is a problem that can actually be fixed. You know, fixed enough that it will make a difference. I'm never going to be one of those people who's going to be out there holding some kind of sign protesting. That's garbage. That's trash. It's a bunch of soccer moms. It's a bunch of stupid little Karens just who have no life, who need to get their head out of there. You can fill in that last word for yourself. So let's get into it with Jordan Peterson. And so what this is a partial recording clip of one of his biblical series that he's been doing, and it's insane about how much there is to say. He's gotten like nowhere with it, and it's like there's so much in the Bible, but it's such concentrated information. Anyways, this is one of them, and he's talking about a quick little synopsis of it. Is that how racial bias testing and training? No, it's not. So, for example, he talks about, are you a racist, or do you just have a preference for people who are in your in-group? Just because you have a preference for these people over here that you like, that doesn't mean that you don't like these people. It's just you have to choose some people. It's just like with your spouse. It's like everyone can't be your spouse, and so you decide who you want. This is something that they've also found out, that like with the Scandinavian countries, these are the countries that they report being the happiest. And that is whenever you have the more alike the people and the culture and the traditions are, the happier that they are. You know why? Because everybody's doing the same thing. You don't have time to get to know every single person. And so how do you make it easier? You say, well, whenever we're out there in society as a group, we're all going to do the same things. So then that way we can make things effective and efficient. You know, and to say that everything is based off of power, it's like, no, it's not. It's based off of competence. Because if it was just power, then stuff wouldn't work. It's based off of competence. You need things to work. And so he goes into this like with a helicopter. And that with a helicopter, you just can't go in and muck around and screw things up just because you feel like it. No, it's not. And it's not based off of power. It's based off of competence. If you want that helicopter to fly, you got to do things right. And then this is the problem with them, with this bias stuff, is that how complicated is a helicopter? You go work on it. See what you can do. Oh, you can't? Well, then what makes you think that you're going to do any better of a job with people? We're more complicated than a damn helicopter, and as complicated as that is, it doesn't it's nothing compared to a human being or for any animal for that matter. So what are you saying? Because there's multiple ways that you can view and interact with the world. You can limit it by saying there's only a certain amount of ways that you can view and interact with the world in a productive fashion. There's plenty of ways that you can interact with the world that it'll just kill you. And he talks about this stuff. And so it's like, well, what are we dealing with specifically? It's like, well, how many variables are there with all of this stuff? Well, each single person is unique. Even if we were all robots coming out of a factory and we were all clones, as soon as one clone goes right and another goes left, they're going to see and experience two different things, and they become unique and individuals. Because over here this way, maybe there is a car crash and you go over and you help. Maybe this way, you find somebody who becomes your friend or a lover. Two completely different experiences, and they're going to shape how you're going to be different. And that's what it is with everyone. Because the closest thing that we would have to something like this would be your siblings. Are you like them? You were raised in the same house. You've got the same parents, same income, same kind of resources at your disposal. You're going to have roughly the same education. Are you like them? No. And this is something that Jordan Peterson talks about, is that, you know what, fix your room, fix your life, fix your friends, fix your family, to clean your room. It's meant to be both a metaphor and to be taken literally with both of them. It's not just clean your room. It's to clean your whole life, which also means your friends and family. And so if you can't even deal with them, what makes you think that you're qualified to handle any of this other stuff? And this is what the website's going to deal with. It's like you are going to be able to express yourself and to deal with it. But with these big tech companies and these politicians, you want to say some stuff, you want to lie, it's like, yeah, we got your number right here. This is going to be your checks and balances. And they're going to be held accountable for once. It's not going to be this outdated nonsense anymore. I always go too long in these things, more than what I want to. There's so much to say, but a few minutes into it, he talks about how these things are unreliable. They're trash. They're complete trash. They're garbage. And the people who came up with this stuff, that they know it, but they're afraid to say anything about it, because it's the same problem that I've talked about before, is that if you want to have funding, because you get the majority of your funding through the government, is that you have to have your research match up with their political views and their ideologies, because they're politicians, they're not scientists. The two need to be separated out. This is something that I've kind of talked about before with compartmentalization. It's not going on, and we have the capability to do it, again, through technology. I'm going to keep saying it. You're going to get fed up with a little bit of it, but each time that you watch this, it's going to be another little light that goes off, and another and another and another, until there's going to be a point in time whenever they're all going to connect, and you're going to see a bigger picture, and it's like, I get it. And you're never going to get it completely. I think whenever the website gets going, I think if you could like do that, if you could have like all of these things that I have envisioned, and you connect them all up, I think it's going to be like maybe a brain, a little synapses links firing, and it's going to be freaking gigantic. It's going to be huge. And it's because the only way to do it is make it as incorporative as you can possibly make it. So, because it's all connected and associated with it. And I'll say that listening to Jordan Peterson and the things that he said about his clinical work, it's a big thing as to why this website is going to be different than the rest of it. So it's that there's psychological aspects to it that he's learned from his clinical psychology that I'm applying to this. And then here's one more kicker that I'm going to get into, and I'm not going over everything in the video because I've gone over with what it is that I want to do with this. You can't untrain this. Let's say that it's not that you have a preference for familiar groups, or maybe you like things that are novel, or maybe that you like things that are familiar. Maybe it really is that you're a racist. They don't know how to take this unconscious bias racism out of you, even if it's real, which they can't even prove that it's real in the first place. But yet here it is, and they've managed to bring it into the government and to Congress. It's not the first time. They've done this in... George R. Martin is a historian. He's the guy who wrote Game of Thrones, a Song of Wind and Fires. I think that's the name of the book. It's not Game of Thrones. He's an historian, and he's talked about this stuff, how politicians will use the feelings and the emotions of the people, and they will just go with it. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Doesn't matter if it's a truth or a lie. They just go with it. They play the people so that they can get what they want. Excuse me? I'm sorry. I didn't understand that. You think that the government was here to put you in some kind of position of authority and power over the rest of us? No. We are designed for the people, by the people, in order to form a more perfect union, not for the government, by the government. And so I'm going to do that. This website is going to be for the people, by the people. You can count on it. Nothing's going to stop me. Because it's just too good. Every time I do a video, I see how what I have in store, it works. It just reinforces me. It's like, yep, it does work here. And it works here, and here too, and here too. And it's because it's the same thing. It's the underlying root of it is that it's a lie. It's not that I have an answer to this problem and this problem and this problem. It's like, no, these problems have all occurred because of lying, because of misinformation. I got it. Calm down there. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a little later at night, so I'm a little kind of tired. As you get older, I used to be able to stay up all night for several nights. Getting older, it's like, no, my body's like, where's that bed? It's like, yeah. So it's still fun, though. I'm enjoying this a lot. Another thing is that, look, you can stop if you want to. I'm just going to ramble on for a little bit. I have close to 400 views on my videos from these 3 platforms that I'm currently posting on. I'm getting much better at them, and it's exciting watching people click on all these views because it's like, oh my goodness, I've got more. It's a math game. If you've taken statistics, I wonder, if you've taken statistics, do you know what I'm doing? Because there is an absolute method to what it is that I'm doing here. So I would say that I'm definitely, no, I'm not. There's a saying, a jack of all trades. That's not the whole saying. The rest of it is a jack of all trades and a master of one. I would say I'm a jack of all trades. I wouldn't say I'm a master of one, though. If I was a master of one, what would it be? Ooh, maybe the truth? Yes, maybe, perhaps. Because I tell you what, part of my self-development that I've done is figuring out who are lying, toxic people in my life, because there's quite a few of them. Another question to ask, though, is, are they doing it on purpose or not? And are they even attempting to do something about it? You know, I hate being talked down to. I hate it whenever somebody comes up and they say, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, don't talk down to me. Don't talk to me like I'm a child. If you're sorry, then stop doing it. Either by don't do that around me anymore, or saying it, or whatever it is, or make a change and make things better. But don't say that. Oh, what is that called? Let me think for a moment. If somebody ever tells you that they're sorry, they're being condescending to you. They're talking to you like a child and that they can just sweep it under the rug. You should never accept that. I mean, if it's a little child, I mean, yes, obviously. If it's a senior citizen, especially one who's in cognitive decline, yes. But if they're capable of doing more, then you should demand it of them. Or at least, you should demand enough that they should at least stop it. If they don't want to change, that's fine. They don't have to, because perhaps you're wrong about it. But at least they can stop, or have a talk about it so you can at least kind of iron it out. But if all they ever say is just, I'm sorry, no, go talk down to someone else. Don't be condescending to me like that. So, oh, and there was one other thing that I thought about. There was some research that was done back in the 40s or 50s where a group of psychologists, but there was a girl, a female, who was running the whole thing. And what they did was that they took these bad performing students, and they were like, all right, we're going to give them a really good education. We're going to take them to summer camp, and we're going to make sure that they know how to read and write and do math and all this kind of stuff. And on a lot of accounts on the surface, it looked like that it did really well, but they did a follow-up later and they found out that no, it had the opposite effect, and that they actually were better criminals and had more problems later on because they knew how to do things kind of better. And Jordan Peterson's talked about this, and one of the things that they learned from this was not what you wanted them to learn, but they learned that you don't ever want to do the follow-up. And it's like the follow-up research and the results that happen afterwards. And he talks about this, that you don't want to go tinkering and messing around with something, because even though it might sound really good and pretty on the surface, there's underlying things that you can't think of, variables, and you don't see it, and it's not immediate or apparent, and then you end up doing more harm or good than good. And I've also heard this, I don't know if this was the same or maybe it was a different one, but it was kind of the same premises. I'm going to say it's a different one because I think it is. But again, they took these students and they said, well, these are students that they're late and they're getting in detention and they're not performing very well. And we're going to have all these counselors and teachers and good performing students where they've got good grades and they're in activities. And they had to stop it early because the good students started to perform poorly. That it was having the opposite effect. And so they had to cancel it. So that sounds like that would be a different one. I saw that one years ago, and it was like, that's kind of unsettling. I can't help but wonder what kind of policies, and we do have policies like that. People don't understand the difference between being kind and enabling, that there's a lot of problems that are going on, and I want to get to the heart of these things. Anyways, I guess I've kind of rambled enough. So I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I might be doing one more tonight. I don't know. I'm kind of tired, but we'll see. Thanks again for everything. I hope you've enjoyed, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.